Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a pretty profound tension, the one between cleverness and actual wisdom. We're going to dissect how our daily, seemingly insignificant actions are literally building the legacy we leave behind. I am so excited to walk through this material with you, because honestly, it completely challenges how we define success and intelligence in our everyday lives. We're kicking things off with a massive hook from the philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. And his declaration, well, it slices right through our modern era. Just think about it. We live in a world absolutely saturated with empty mission statements, hyper-polished personal brands, and perfectly curated visuals. But Sartre reminds us that none of it counts until it actually becomes an action. Commitment is an act, not just a word.
Which brings us to the core mystery we're exploring today. What are we actually committed to in our daily lives? Are the choices we make building a monument of superficial cleverness, or are we quietly constructing one of deep, enduring character? To answer that, we have to look at the powerful forces constantly pulling us away from character.
Section 1. The illusion of cleverness. Form over content.
To look at this impartially, let's jump back to a really fascinating media incident from 1984. Veteran CBS News correspondent Leslie Stahl aired a highly critical 4.5-minute television segment. She was laying out the realities of the Reagan administration's policies, showing exactly how they used emotional imagery to just kind of paper over any negative effects. Now, she was incredibly proud of this hard-hitting piece of journalism.
But get this, instead of being upset, a senior White House official actually called to thank her. When she asked if he had even listened to what she said, he dropped this darkly comedic truth. He basically said, "Leslie, when you're showing 4.5 minutes of great pictures of Ronald Reagan, no one listens to what you say." The administration's communications team knew exactly what they were doing. They knew those great pictures completely distracted viewers from her critical journalism.
As author Robert Greene points out in The Art of Seduction, this is a literal masterclass in how form, meticulously crafted visuals, confident backdrops, the right camera angles will almost always defeat content and facts. Form is cleverness at its absolute most sophisticated, and it's a troubling but totally fundamental reality of human nature we just have to be aware of. We are creatures who believe our eyes first, and clever visual framing, it capitalizes on that every single time.
Section 2. Kindness over cleverness. The pivot to wisdom.
So, if clever visual manipulation is the problem, let's pivot to something much older and, frankly, way more difficult to practice: genuine wisdom. There's the perfect example of this from the childhood of Amazon founder Jeff Bezos. Picture this. He's sitting in the backseat of a car with his grandparents. He hears an anti-smoking radio ad, and using his quick intellect, he cleverly calculates exactly how many years of life his grandmother had lost to smoking. He proudly announces the math to the entire car, and the result? His grandmother just bursts into tears.
His grandfather immediately pulled the car over, took him aside, and delivered this unforgettable lesson. He said, "Jeff, one day you'll understand that it's harder to be kind than clever." Wow. That brilliantly illustrates a massive shift. It completely upends the moral hierarchy we all absorb in childhood, right? The one where quick intelligence and doing the math faster than anyone else gets you all the gold stars.
Author Ryan Holiday reflects on this exact story in his book, Daily Dad. You see, self-obsessed intelligence and wit, that stuff comes easy when you just want attention. It's just easy math. But kindness, that requires deep empathy. It takes the patience to actually model another person's interior world before you open your mouth. That quiet choice to patiently consider how your words will land, that is the true deliberate act of commitment Sartre was talking about earlier.
Section 3. The invisible architecture.
Zooming out from those personal interactions for a second, let's look at how these quiet, deliberate acts of character scale up. Marketing author Seth Godin calls this the invisible architecture. In his book, This is Strategy, Godin traces these seemingly disjointed, unglamorous, layered innovations. We're talking Josiah Wedgwood's mass-produced China, Ada Lovelace's foundational computing logic, the invention of the commercial price tag, the steel shipping container. I mean, none of these felt world historical in the moment. Yet these quiet, committed historical acts became the crucial substrate for literally everything that followed. Even something as comically trivial as you ordering cheap $2 underwater headphones online with next-day delivery today.
This whole idea is summarized perfectly by artist Paul Klee. Art does not reproduce the visible. Rather, it makes visible. Foundational acts by people like Lovelace and Wanamaker didn't just reflect the world as it was, they revealed latent possibilities. They made computational logic and commercial trust visible to the rest of us. They prove that true commitment, deep architectural acts, changes what is absolutely possible for everyone else down the line.
Section 4. Through, not around. The acts of commitment.
So how do we actually apply this invisible, patient, foundational work to our own daily lives? We know cleverness won't cut it. So how do we build our own architecture? Well, we have to embrace Robert Frost's austere truth. There is no way but through. You cannot bypass hard work by being clever or by finding the right visual frame like the Reagan team. You have to go through. But we've got to balance that with Coach Dan John's wisdom. More is not better. Better is better. Going through doesn't just mean frantically accumulating tasks. It means doing the right thing well, with real discernment. This philosophy translates directly into the incredibly unglamorous athlete's creed. First to practice, first to do extra work, first to make eye contact. Look, this list does not describe genius. It definitely doesn't describe cleverness. It simply outlines the daily, repeated choices to be present and committed way before you are ever required to be. It perfectly lives out Sartre's distinction between just saying the word and actually performing the act. Okay, but we do need a slight corrective to all this relentless activist energy. Anthony DeMello shares a parable of a fish frantically searching for the ocean, swimming around asking everyone where to find it. This kind of drops the floor out from under us. It reminds us that some things, like the warmth of our heart or true human connection, they cannot be found by clever effort, or even by just grinding through everything. Why? Because they were never actually lost. The fish is already in the ocean. True wisdom is knowing when to work hard and when to realize you are already exactly where you need to be.
Section 5. Building your monument.
Now let's synthesize all of these opposing forces we've been talking about. Cleverness versus kindness, words versus acts, striving versus just being. The central tension of this whole explainer resolves right here, into the monument. The monument is the living character you build through repeated, daily acts of commitment, kindness, and discernment. It is not a literal stone statue. It is the living result of choosing presence over distraction day after single day.
And there's this blunt, anonymous tombstone quote that brilliantly captures the whole concept. It connects absolutely everything we've discussed today. The Reagan administration's fading visual pictures, a young Jeff Bezos's quick math, those were merely clever temporary verses. And verses fade. But the invisible infrastructure built by historical innovators and the daily kindness of your living character, those are the only monuments that actually endure.
So what does this actually look like for us tomorrow morning? Well, the monument is built granularly. It's built by minimizing distracting, toxic inputs, by actively choosing to be the reason someone smiles today, by doing one thing that makes you genuinely happy, and grounding that happiness in the simple warmth of your own heart, rather than constantly seeking external attention and praise for how clever you are.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative question to help you evaluate your own legacy. When you speak to someone today, when you sit down to do your work, ask yourself, are you being clever today or are you being kind? Remember that grandfather's lesson. It is always harder to be kind than clever, but the harder thing is the only thing that lasts. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this profound topic today.